Benedict Arnold, the name that has become the very definition of betrayal. But the story of America's most infamous traitor is far more complex than most people know. Behind the treason is a tale of courage, ambition, and resentment. A man who once rose as a hero only to fall into disgrace. Arnold was not born a villain. He was a patriot, a leader, and a skilled general who played a key role in some of the most significant battles of the Revolutionary War. So how did this hero transform into a traitor? What events pushed him over the edge, and what consequences followed for America? This is the complete story of Benedict Arnold, a tale of war, betrayal, and redemption denied. Early life and ambition, the seeds of greatness and discontent. Benedict Arnold was born on January 14, 1741, in Norwich, Connecticut, into a family of modest means. His father, also named Benedict Arnold, was a successful merchant in his early years, but financial mismanagement and personal issues led the family into decline. Young Arnold grew up in a household shadowed by both the expectations of his family's past success and the hardships of its present struggles. These formative experiences instilled in him an early sense of ambition and a burning desire to rise above his circumstances. As a boy, Arnold displayed a mixture of charm and impulsiveness that would later define his character. He was known for his intelligence and leadership among his peers, but he also had a reputation for being headstrong and quick to anger. His formal education was cut short due to the family's financial troubles, which further fueled his determination to succeed. From an early age, Arnold's actions were driven by a deep-seated need to prove himself, both to others and to his own sense of worth. In his teenage years, Arnold was apprenticed to a local apothecary, where he learned the trade and developed a strong work ethic. However, this modest profession was not enough to satisfy his ambitions. Arnold eventually struck out on his own, entering the mercantile business. Through determination and skill, he achieved moderate success, trading goods in the colonies and abroad. His ventures took him to distant places, giving him a broader perspective on the world and feeding his aspirations for wealth and status. Arnold's entrepreneurial spirit, however, was not without controversy. Known for his sharp business practices, he sometimes clashed with competitors and associates. This pattern of brilliance mixed with conflict would follow him throughout his life. Yet his drive and confidence remained unshaken, even as he faced setbacks. These early years reveal the duality of Arnold's character, a man of remarkable talent and ambition, but also one prone to alienating those around him. Despite his successes, Arnold's ambition often outpaced his resources. He was driven by a deep-seated frustration with the limits imposed by his social and economic circumstances. This frustration was not just personal. It reflected a broader discontent with the colonial system, which often stifled the aspirations of individuals like Arnold. His resentment of authority and rigid hierarchies would later influence his decisions during the Revolutionary War. Arnold's early life and career laid the groundwork for the choices and challenges that would define his legacy. His ambition propelled him forward, but it also sowed the seeds of his eventual discontent. To understand the man who became America's most infamous traitor, one must first understand the boy and young man who was determined to carve out his place in a world that seemed stacked against him. The heroic beginning, Arnold's rise in the Revolutionary War. When the American colonies declared their rebellion against British rule, Benedict Arnold was quick to join the cause. His decision was driven by a combination of patriotism, ambition, and a desire to prove himself as a leader. Arnold saw in the revolution not only a chance to fight for liberty, but also an opportunity to rise to prominence in a way that had eluded him in civilian life. Arnold's military career began with a bold and ambitious move, the capture of Fort Ticonderoga in May 1775. Alongside Ethan Allen and the Green Mountain Boys, Arnold played a pivotal role in seizing the fort, which was of strategic importance due to its artillery and supplies. Though the mission was a success, disputes over credit and leadership between Arnold and Allen foreshadowed the personal conflicts that would plague Arnold's career. Later that year, Arnold led a daring expedition to Quebec in an attempt to rally the Canadian population to the revolutionary cause. The campaign was one of the most grueling undertakings of the war, as Arnold's forces endured harsh weather, disease, and starvation while navigating the wilderness. Though the assault on Quebec ultimately failed, Arnold's leadership and courage during the expedition earned him widespread admiration. Many saw him as a rising star in the Continental Army. In 1776, Arnold proved his strategic brilliance during the Battle of Valcour Island on Lake Champlain. Facing a superior British fleet, Arnold orchestrated a naval engagement that delayed the British advance into the colonies. Although the battle ended in a tactical defeat, it was a strategic victory that bought the Continental Army precious time. Arnold's ability to outmaneuver a stronger enemy highlighted his resourcefulness and audacity as a commander. The following year, Arnold played a critical role in the pivotal Battle of Saratoga, one of the turning points of the Revolutionary War. Despite being sidelined by his commanding officer, General Horatio Gates, Arnold defied orders and led a charge that broke the British lines, securing an American victory. His bravery on the battlefield left him severely wounded, but his actions cemented his reputation as one of the Revolution's most capable leaders. Despite these achievements, Arnold's heroism often went unrecognized by his superiors. He grew increasingly frustrated with what he perceived as a lack of respect and appreciation for his contributions. Arnold's inability to receive the recognition he felt he deserved began to chip away at his loyalty to the cause. While his military brilliance brought him accolades, the seeds of discontent were already beginning to take root. A brave soldier, the battles that made Arnold a patriot. Benedict Arnold's military career during the Revolutionary War was marked by a series of bold, calculated actions that showcased his skill as a strategist and his courage as a soldier. His battlefield exploits were instrumental in shaping the early successes of the American cause, solidifying his reputation as a patriot and a hero in the eyes of many. One of Arnold's earliest and most significant contributions came during the defense of Lake Champlain. Recognizing the strategic importance of controlling the waterways, Arnold undertook the construction of a small fleet to challenge British dominance. Though outnumbered and outgunned, Arnold's forces managed to delay the British advance. The engagement at Valcour Island was a testament to Arnold's ingenuity, as he used the natural terrain to his advantage and forced the British to reconsider their plans for the campaign. Arnold's bravery extended beyond naval engagements. On land, he consistently demonstrated his willingness to lead from the front, often putting himself in harm's way to inspire his troops. During the failed assault on Quebec, Arnold's personal leadership was evident. Though wounded in the leg, he refused to abandon his men, rallying them even as the situation grew dire. This incident further cemented his reputation as a fearless leader who was deeply committed to the revolutionary cause. Another notable moment in Arnold's military career was his involvement in the Saratoga campaign. His leadership during the battles of Freeman's Farm and Bemis Heights proved decisive. Despite being sidelined by General Horatio Gates, Arnold took matters into his own hands, rallying the troops and delivering a decisive blow to the British forces. His actions not only helped secure the American victory at Saratoga, but also contributed to the French decision to enter the war as allies, a turning point in the Revolution. Arnold's battlefield heroics, however, came at a personal cost. He was severely injured during the Battle of Saratoga, with a musket ball shattering his leg. The injury left him with a permanent limp and chronic pain, but it also became a symbol of his sacrifice for the American cause. For a time, Arnold was celebrated as a war hero, his name spoken with admiration by both soldiers and civilians. Despite his valor, Arnold's career was marred by conflicts with other officers in the Continental Congress. His tendency to act independently and his outspokenness about the shortcomings of others often alienated his peers. Moreover, Arnold's growing frustration with the lack of recognition for his achievements began to weigh heavily on him. He felt that his contributions were being overlooked, while less capable officers received promotions and accolades. Arnold's legacy as a soldier who fought valiantly for the revolutionary cause remains a critical part of his story. These years were marked by extraordinary feats of bravery and strategic brilliance, But they were also a time when the seeds of his eventual discontent and betrayal began to take hold. For all his successes, Arnold's sense of injustice and wounded pride would soon lead him down a path that would overshadow his earlier accomplishments. The turning point, betrayal, born of ambition and frustration. By the late 1770s, Benedict Arnold's frustration with the Continental Army and the American cause had reached a boiling point. Despite his numerous contributions to the war effort, Arnold felt deeply undervalued and unfairly treated. His resentment was fueled by a combination of personal grievances, political infighting, and financial struggles, all of which drove him toward a fateful decision that would alter the course of his life and American history forever. Arnold's discontent began to manifest more openly after his appointment as the military governor of Philadelphia in 1778. Although it was a position of prestige, it did little to satisfy his ambitions. Instead, his time in Philadelphia became a source of scandal and controversy. Arnold lived lavishly, throwing extravagant parties and mingling with the city's loyalist elite. His lifestyle raised eyebrows among American patriots, who questioned his commitment to the cause. Compounding Arnold's troubles were the accusations of corruption and misuse of funds leveled against him. The Continental Congress, already stretched thin financially, scrutinized Arnold's actions closely. A court-martial was convened to investigate the charges, further damaging his reputation. Although Arnold was ultimately cleared of most allegations, the ordeal left him embittered and deeply mistrustful of the American leadership. It was during this turbulent period that Arnold began corresponding with British officials. His motivations were complex, a mix of financial desperation, personal ambition, and a belief that the American Revolution was doomed to fail. Arnold saw an opportunity to secure his future by switching sides, and he was willing to betray the very cause he had once fought for so passionately. Arnold's betrayal was not a sudden decision, but a calculated move born of months of negotiation with the British. He sought not only financial compensation, but also a position of power within the British military. In return, Arnold offered his services as a general and control of West Point, a critical American fortress on the Hudson River. The surrender of West Point would have dealt a devastating blow to the Continental Army, potentially altering the outcome of the war. The plan, however, began to unravel with the capture of Major John André, a British officer who had been carrying correspondence between Arnold and his British contacts. André's capture exposed the plot, forcing Arnold to flee to British-controlled territory. His escape came just in time, as American forces discovered his betrayal and moved to apprehend him. The revelation of Arnold's treachery sent shockwaves through the colonies. Once celebrated as a hero, he was now reviled as a traitor. His name became synonymous with betrayal, a symbol of the consequences of placing personal ambition above loyalty to one's country. Yet, Arnold's decision to turn against the revolution was not solely the result of greed or disloyalty. It was also the culmination of years of frustration, disillusionment, and a desire to secure his legacy on his own terms. The West Point Conspiracy, a plot to destroy the revolution. Benedict Arnold's decision to betray the American cause reached its climax with the West Point Conspiracy, a scheme that had the potential to deliver a crippling blow to the Continental Army. West Point, located on the Hudson River, was one of the most strategically important fortresses in the American colonies. Its capture by the British could have severed critical supply lines and split the colonies in two, dealing a severe setback to the revolution. Arnold's plan to hand over this vital stronghold remains one of the most infamous plots in American history. After securing command of West Point in August 1780, Arnold began systematically weakening the fort's defenses. He delayed necessary repairs, reduced the garrison's strength, and ensured that critical supplies were insufficient. These actions were deliberate, intended to make the fortress an easy target for the British when the time came to surrender it. Arnold's sabotage of West Point was done under the guise of legitimate command decisions, masking his true intentions from his subordinates. Arnold's British contact, Major John André, played a key role in coordinating the plot. The two exchanged secret communications, often using coded letters and intermediaries to avoid detection. The terms of Arnold's betrayal were clear. In exchange for delivering West Point to the British, Arnold would receive £20,000 and a commission as a brigadier general in the British Army. For Arnold, this was not just a financial windfall, but a way to secure his future and restore his tarnished honor. The conspiracy took a critical turn in September 1780, when André met with Arnold near West Point to finalize the details of the plan. Disguised as a civilian, André carried crucial documents that outlined the fortress's defenses and Arnold's intentions. However, fate intervened when André was captured by American militiamen near Tarrytown, New York. The incriminating papers found in his possession exposed the plot and implicated Arnold in the scheme. Arnold narrowly escaped capture after learning of André's arrest. Upon receiving word that the plot had been uncovered, Arnold fled West Point and sought refuge aboard the British ship HMS Vulture. His dramatic escape spared him from immediate justice but sealed his fate as America's most notorious traitor. The betrayal sent shockwaves through the Continental Army and the fledgling nation, with many struggling to reconcile Arnold's treason with his previous heroism. Major André, meanwhile, faced a grim fate. Despite his honorable conduct and the sympathy he garnered from American officers, André was tried as a spy and sentenced to death. His execution became a somber symbol of the high stakes of the Revolutionary War. For the British, André's death was a tragic loss. For the Americans, it was a reminder of the costs of betrayal. The West Point conspiracy stands as a defining moment in Benedict Arnold's story. It was a calculated act of treason that highlighted his strategic brilliance and moral ambiguity. While the plot ultimately failed, its near success underscored the precariousness of the American cause and the devastating impact that Arnold's betrayal could have had on the revolution. The name Benedict Arnold would forever be associated with this act of treachery, cementing his place in history as a figure both brilliant and deeply flawed. The capture of Major André, how the scheme unraveled. The capture of Major John André on September 23, 1780, was the pivotal moment that exposed Benedict Arnold's treachery and brought the West Point conspiracy to light. André, a trusted officer in the British Army, was tasked with coordinating the final details of Arnold's plan to surrender West Point. However, his capture by American militiamen was an unexpected twist that changed the course of the Revolutionary War. André's mission began with a clandestine meeting with Arnold on the shores of the Hudson River. Disguised as a civilian, André was given detailed maps, documents, and instructions from Arnold outlining West Point's defenses and the planned handover to the British. To avoid suspicion, André traveled south by land instead of returning to British lines by ship. This decision would prove fatal. Near Tarrytown, André encountered 3 American militiamen, John Paulding, Isaac Van Wart, and David Williams, who stopped him for questioning. Although André initially claimed to be a civilian traveling under a pass issued by Arnold, the militiamen became suspicious when they searched him. Hidden in his boot were the incriminating documents that revealed the details of the plot. Realizing the importance of their discovery, the militiamen took André into custody and alerted American authorities. News of André's capture reached George Washington as he was en route to inspect West Point. Upon examining the papers, Washington immediately understood the gravity of the situation. He recognized Arnold's handwriting and realized that the betrayal came from one of his most trusted generals. Washington's reaction was one of both shock and resolve. He acted swiftly to secure West Point and prevent any further fallout from the conspiracy. Arnold, upon learning of André's capture, fled immediately. He abandoned his command at West Point and escaped to the British lines, leaving his wife and child behind. His dramatic flight spared him from arrest but confirmed his guilt in the eyes of his former comrades. Arnold's escape enraged and demoralized the Continental Army, as his treason struck at the heart of their cause. André's fate was sealed after a court-martial found him guilty of espionage. Despite his rank and honorable demeanor, André's role in the conspiracy classified him as a spy. On October 2, 1780, he was hanged in Tappan, New York, becoming a tragic figure in the annals of the war. His death, while regrettable to many, served as a stern warning against acts of betrayal and espionage during the Revolution. The capture of Major André not only thwarted Arnold's plans, but also galvanized American resolve, turning a near disaster into a moment of unity and determination. Arnold's escape from Patriot to British ally. The unraveling of the West Point conspiracy set Benedict Arnold on a desperate course to save himself. Upon learning that Major André had been captured and the plot was exposed, Arnold's first instinct was to flee. His dramatic escape marked the final break between him and the revolutionary cause, as he abandoned not only his command but also his comrades and reputation. Arnold was at breakfast with his wife, Peggy Shippen, and several officers when word arrived that André had been apprehended. Realizing the plot had been discovered, Arnold immediately fled to the shores of the Hudson River. He boarded a small boat and demanded to be taken to the British ship HMS Vulture, which was anchored nearby. The rowers, unaware of the betrayal, obeyed Arnold's orders, unknowingly aiding his escape. Once aboard the Vulture, Arnold was officially welcomed by British officers. His arrival was met with a mix of relief and suspicion. While his knowledge of American defenses was valuable, the British could not entirely trust a man who had just betrayed his own cause. Nonetheless, Arnold was offered a commission as a brigadier general in the British Army and the financial reward he had been promised for his treachery. Arnold's wife, Peggy Shippen, played a significant role in his escape and transition to British lines. When American officers confronted her about Arnold's betrayal, Peggy feigned hysteria and claimed ignorance of the plot. Her performance was convincing enough to avoid suspicion, allowing her to join Arnold later. Peggy's loyalty to her husband remained steadfast, and she accompanied him into exile, becoming an enduring partner in his new life. Despite his initial reception, Arnold's position among the British was far from secure. While he was given a command and financial compensation, he was never fully embraced by his new allies. Many British officers viewed him with disdain, questioning his loyalty and motives. Arnold's reputation as a traitor overshadowed his strategic value, and he struggled to find acceptance in his new role. Arnold's escape was both a personal and symbolic turning point. It marked the end of his journey as an American patriot and the beginning of his life as a British loyalist. His flight to the Vulture spared him from capture and execution, but it also condemned him to a life of infamy. For the Americans, his escape was a bitter reminder of the fragility of trust and loyalty in the face of ambition and betrayal. For Arnold, it was the price he paid for choosing self-interest over the ideals he once fought to defend. A general for the enemy. Arnold's service to the crown. After his escape to British lines, Benedict Arnold assumed his new role as a brigadier general in the British Army. While he had hoped to achieve fame and fortune in his new allegiance, his career as a British officer was fraught with challenges, distrust, and disappointment. Despite his tactical brilliance, Arnold's reputation as a traitor preceded him, shaping his interactions with both his superiors and subordinates. Arnold's first significant assignment for the British was to lead an expedition against the American forces in Virginia in 1781. He commanded a series of raids that targeted supply lines and inflicted considerable damage on the colonial war effort. Operating with brutal efficiency, Arnold's tactics involved the destruction of towns and resources, actions that further cemented his infamy among the American populace. These operations, while militarily effective, did little to win the loyalty of the British officers under whom he served. In one of the most notable episodes of his service, Arnold joined British General William Phillips in an expedition against Richmond, Virginia. The campaign succeeded in capturing and burning the city, a blow to the American cause. However, Arnold's participation in these destructive operations made him a hated figure in the colonies, where his name became synonymous with betrayal and devastation. For Arnold, the hatred of his former countrymen was a constant reminder of the cost of his decisions. Despite his contributions to the British war effort, Arnold never gained the level of respect or trust he desired. Many British officers viewed him as a liability, questioning his loyalty and commitment. After all, if he had betrayed the Americans, what assurance did the British have that he wouldn't betray them as well? This skepticism limited his opportunities for advancement and left him on the fringes of the British command structure. Frustrated by his treatment and longing for recognition, Arnold petitioned the British government for greater responsibilities and rewards. His appeals were met with mixed responses, reflecting the ambivalence with which he was regarded. Though he was granted financial compensation and land in Canada, Arnold's dreams of achieving lasting fame and influence within the British ranks remained unfulfilled. By the end of the war, Arnold's position was precarious. The British defeat at Yorktown in 1781 effectively ended their hopes of suppressing the revolution. Arnold, now a man without a country, found himself exiled from both the land of his birth and the nation he had served in his final years. His service to the crown, while significant, was overshadowed by the stigma of his betrayal, leaving him a figure shunned by allies and reviled by enemies alike. The legacy of Treason, America's most hated villain. Benedict Arnold's betrayal and subsequent service to the British left an indelible mark on his legacy. In both the United States and Britain, he became a polarizing figure, remembered more for his infamous act of treason than for his earlier heroism. His name came synonymous with disloyalty, a cautionary tale for generations about the consequences of placing personal ambition above the collective good. In the United States, Arnold was vilified almost immediately after his defection. Propaganda materials portrayed him as the epitome of treachery, using his name to rally public support for the revolutionary cause. Poems, plays, and pamphlets condemned him as a man who sold out his country for personal gain. Even his earlier military achievements were overshadowed by his betrayal, and his name was erased from monuments and records that honored Revolutionary War heroes. The American people viewed Arnold as a symbol of everything the revolution sought to overcome. His greed, ambition, and perceived arrogance stood in stark contrast to the ideals of liberty and sacrifice that defined the fight for independence. For many, Arnold's story was not just about one man's betrayal, but a reminder of the fragility of the cause and the importance of vigilance against internal threats. In Britain, Arnold's reception was more complex. While he was welcomed as a valuable asset during the war, his reputation as a traitor made him a controversial figure. British society never fully accepted him, and he struggled to find a place among his new peers. Some regarded him as a hero who had acted on principle, but many others saw him as an opportunist whose loyalty could not be trusted. His post-war life in Britain was marked by financial difficulties, legal disputes, and social isolation. Arnold spent his final years in relative obscurity, living with his wife, Peggy, and their children. He attempted various business ventures, including a failed shipping enterprise, but was unable to achieve lasting success. His health declined, and he died in London on June 14, 1801, at the age of 60. According to legend, his final words reflected his lingering regret over his decisions, expressing a wish that he could have been remembered as a patriot. Benedict Arnold's legacy endures as a powerful symbol of betrayal. His name has entered the American lexicon as a term for treachery, and his story continues to be a subject of fascination and debate. Was he a man driven to desperate measures by a lack of recognition and respect, or was his treason an act of pure self-interest? The complexities of Arnold's life ensure that he remains one of the most infamous and enigmatic figures in American history. His story a poignant reminder of the thin line between heroism and infamy. Conclusion: lessons from Benedict Arnold's story. The story of Benedict Arnold is a cautionary tale, a dramatic reminder of the complexities of loyalty, ambition, and human frailty. Arnold's journey from a celebrated war hero to a despised traitor captures the contradictions of his character. A man capable of extraordinary courage and vision, yet undone by his own ambition and discontent. Arnold's life challenges us to consider the fine line between heroism and infamy. At his peak, he was a brilliant strategist who played a vital role in key Revolutionary War victories. Yet his inability to reconcile personal grievances with the greater cause led to his downfall. His betrayal underscores the dangers of unchecked ego and the corrosive power of resentment. For Americans, Arnold's legacy serves as a stark warning about the cost of internal division and the importance of fostering unity, even in the face of adversity. His story highlights how even the most dedicated individuals can falter when they feel unappreciated or marginalized. It is a reminder of the need for fair recognition and support for those who dedicate themselves to a common cause. On a broader level, Arnold's tale speaks to the universal themes of ambition, identity, and redemption. His defection to the British was not only a betrayal of his country, but also a betrayal of his own ideals. In the end, he found neither satisfaction nor acceptance in his new allegiance, leaving him an outcast in both the land he fought for and the land he served. Arnold's story has endured for centuries, not only because of its dramatic twists and moral implications, but also because it resonates with timeless questions about loyalty and human nature. Can we separate the man from his actions? Is redemption possible after such a profound betrayal? These questions continue to fuel discussions about Arnold's place in history. As we reflect on Benedict Arnold's life, we are reminded that history is rarely black and white. His story is one of triumph and tragedy, heroism and infamy, ambition and regret. It is a tale that forces us to confront the complexities of human motivation and the consequences of our choices, ensuring that Arnold's legacy will remain a subject of fascination for generations to come.